So, for the last season and a half of the Lehr Podcast, we've been so fortunate to have so many beautiful, incredible humans join us and share things that they're doing to help advance themselves, advance their business, and more importantly, help others. So, excited to be able to share a little bit of some of the best of the Lehr Podcast. Make your day great. Most people don't know what appraisal is. They don't know what a Tidewater is, if it's a VA loan. Those are things they don't know. But when you put that on a video and let them know, these are the things that could happen.
Right.
Hey, we're going to deal with it together, but these are the things that can happen, and letting them know the pitfalls that come alongside of purchasing a home, right?
100%. We future pace everything in the transaction, because if the first time they hear about the appraisal coming in low, and the buyer hoping they're going to reduce the price, if the first time they hear about that is the day you call them and say, "Oh, Jack, so sorry," they're disappointed, they're scared, they're frustrated. But if you told them 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days in advance, hey, these are some things that could happen, they've already had time to digest what this looks like. And it's so much of a smaller mountain to climb together. But that is true in inspections and closing and all types of part of the process. So yeah, we've tried to operationalize all that stuff.
Yeah, future pacing. I love that. I'm bringing that into my world, that term. It's interesting. So I've been fortunate, and you, just like you, we've been in some rooms with some real incredible people that are killing it and building teams and just producing at very high levels, operationalizing everything. One of the things I like to talk about with my team is making sure that we're not a discount company whatsoever. We're full service. That means if it's a 4% listing and 2% or 1.5% is going to the agent, having that conversation up front with our buyers to let them know what that's going to look at. It could be rolled into the loan. It could be rolled into negotiations to get the full 3% per side. The last time you want to deal with that is at the time the contract's being written.
100%.
Matt, this is only 4%. You're going to have to make up the extra, 2% or whatever, 1.5%, whatever that looks like.
Right.
Boy, having that conversation on the back end is the same as what you're doing here. It's getting dealt up front. I'd rather have the pain point dealt with up front, because it can doubly and triple the pain on the back end, right?
100%. I can't tell you how many times, Jack, I've had a client say to me, they handle the situation so well, and I'm almost surprised. I'm like, man, I'm so glad that you're so comfortable with this. He goes, "Well, Matt, you told me 3 weeks ago this was going to happen. My wife and I've already discussed it." So it's I'm like, oh, well, good thing I communicate so well. It just makes their experience better, my life easier. And that's part of what the talk was about. Is with homes sitting on the market longer in a lot of cities, is how do we make sure that seller is constantly informed of what we're doing to market their home, to where when we need that price reduction, we're not on the defense trying to justify what we've done to market their home. They already know. So they're calling you saying, "Jack, man, you're obviously killing it marketing my home, but it's not selling. Just tell me straight, what do I got to do to sell my home?" Because they've been educated.
Well, we'll never beat the robots. Yeah. When it comes to what a client is looking for, we will never beat Zillow. It's just impossible. When somebody says, "Hey, Jack, I'm looking for 4 bedrooms, under 1.5, on a half acre, and I'd like a basement," it will take you infinitely longer to deliver the information of what is available for them than Zillow. Zillow, it's instantaneous. Okay, cool. Well, let's concede defeat. Okay, Zillow, you got us. You beat us. Mm-hmm. Well, if we want to win a game, we have to win the why game. And Zillow will never understand the why game. Zillow will never be on the phone with an individual and say, "Well, Jack, tell me what's going on." You're like, "I'm getting divorced, and my wife, she's keeping the house, so I've got to go buy another place, and got this boat I need to park somewhere." And Zillow will never get that granular. Yeah. We can as humans. And so I think that we've just fully, in our office, we've fully conceded to Zillow, all right, cool, you beat us at the what game, but you're never going to beat us at why. So what we're going to walk through is past, present, future. So I would say, well, Jack, it seemed like at the time you made a great decision. You built an amazing brokerage. Mm-hmm. Great job. How's it going for you now? Like, are you happy? Like, how is it working? It's great. We're, making a little bit of money. We've got a lot of agents we love, blankety, blankety, blank. Well, let me ask you this. What are the three best things in your mind about your brokerage, like owning your brokerage? The first thing they're going to toss out is something they would say to everybody, like, it's great to control the money, right?
Mhm.
Number two is going to be the thing that they actually care about the most. They're going to say, well, it's been really cool to build something. And then number three is just a toss away. Number three is usually complete crap. It's fun to have my name on the building, right? So number three doesn't really matter. Number one matters a little bit. Number two matters a lot. I'm gonna say, all right, well, let me ask you this, Jack. Looking into the future, seeing how big the world is, how big the North America is, and what a great thing you've built. Do you feel like, imagining yourself into the future, is this brokerage that you've built going to help you achieve your goals moving forward? They'll generally say, well, I've got some concerns. And so the reason you go through that process is, unless you understand someone's past, unless you can relate with their future, and unless you can paint a vision, or their present, paint a vision of the future, it's really hard to get them to make a move.
Agents wanting to start a team or have a team or in that messy middle, it really comes down to modeling exactly what other people have done. Because there's plenty of successful teams out there. There's you, there's me, there's a bunch of them. And so don't try to reinvent the wheel. KW even teaches on this, of like the whole triangle models, and then marketing or innovation or whatever. It's like, follow the model, and then you can put your creativity on top of it. And so I would say, for those of you who don't know, just go, Tom Ferry, you're a Tom Ferry client. He has tons of free YouTube, exactly what to do. You have a ton of content like we do. Go follow the models or hire a coach, And
I believe that's a big thing, is get a mentor at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Stop trying to do it on your own. Like we talk about rip off and duplicate.
Yep.
There's so many people doing it great out there. There's a lot of people doing it not so well, but go find somebody that's doing it great and ask for some help and hire a coach.
Yeah. So I would say those are the people that are starting a team. A lot of it too is they're in their mind about how many agents, and I don't want that big of a team, or I don't have this or that. And the key to it is you just have to start. Like, agents are the key to your revenue. It's like you have to have agents to sell the homes. Yeah. So the number one thing I would tell you is that you have to have a massive agent attraction or recruiting strategy.
They always think that it's me that I set up the meeting and Colin's just along, but I'm like, no. I said, Colin set this meeting. I'll be inviting me in to see if this is going to make sense for all of us or not, and how we can potentially help you. Because we go in with a helpful heart, servant leader. That way, it's about helping them, and that's how we end up getting some incredible opportunities. So we're in this one property. I want to say it was down in Shrewsbury, and they were so dumbfounded that this young man was that successful in this business at such an early age. And you were probably 19 at the time.
Yeah.
That was about right time?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I just love how, they just gave him so much credibility when they learned that Colin's the one that had all of those conversations leading up to that meeting, right?
Yeah.
There's another person that we met with in the New York Suburban School District. We didn't end up doing a deal with them.
Yep.
But they just couldn't believe it. And they were just blown away that this young man had such maturity and such wisdom.
Type 2 diabetes is not like type 1 diabetes. A lot of people in this country have type 2 diabetes. It's something you develop through poor nutrition. And the reality is it can actually be reversed, because it's registered or diagnosed based on certain levels in your blood work, HbA1c being one of them. And so when you actually get your HbA1c down to a normal range, you're technically not type 2 diabetic anymore. And the scary thing is you have to get on insulin and all these things. But there hasn't been a ton of education explaining why this happens to people. And so, we want nobody type 2 diabetic. And it's one of the most avoidable disease out there really through proper nutrition. And what happens though is by this overabundance of sugar that we consume, our body has to put out insulin to manage that processing that sugar. And eventually it gets tired of doing it. So you become insulin resistant. And so then you eventually that sugar builds up, you have high glucose, you have high A1C, now you're type 2 diabetic. And eventually you may have to actually get on insulin because your body doesn't produce enough anymore to manage that. And that's a scary thing for a lot of people. And so this new drug, semaglutide, designed for type 2 diabetes people it actually can, there's studies that Novo Nordisk did that show reversing insulin resistance. And one of the biggest side effects they noticed was weight loss, right? So like people on it for 12 months, usually losing 15 pounds of body weight. Well, dude, if you're 200 pounds, that's 30 pounds, right? If you're 300 pounds, that's 300 pounds on 15%, whatever that math is. It's a lot of weight. Hands-on healthcare is important. Saying, hey, here's 90 days worth of stuff, good luck, is not really good, right? And it especially if when you understand everybody's body's unique, everybody's goals are unique, everybody's how they tolerate and metabolize medication is unique. And so we understand that. So we want to have the approach of like custom medicine, custom healthcare for individuals. So we developed a great process almost 2 years ago on semaglutide. We call our semaglutide therapy, where we just manage that weekly check-in and take everybody on their own journey of weight loss. And we do blood work. So you come in, we meet with a provider, do blood work. And we want to look at those levels because what we want to do when we keep checking blood work along the way is show you your LDL drops, your blood glucose levels are dropping, your HbA1c is dropping to, kind of losing weight and the scale going down is awesome, right? But showing internally that you're reversing some of these negative states you've been in from a health standpoint is awesome, right? There's that's super cool because you can't see it, but the blood, we always say that the blood work doesn't have an opinion, right? It's factual data. And because a lot of times too, people think, oh, I eat pretty clean, pretty healthy blood work. I think of like that Maury Povich show where it's like the results say you're lying, right? Like false. And so it's a good thing too, with looking at blood work regularly again, is just to correct it.
The bartering for cigar boxes was just one way I was able to build my business unconventionally. Why not trade? Yeah. How hard is it for me to do a 3-hour gig? It's nothing. So I go and do that. They load my van and I'm set for a year.
It's that entrepreneurial spirit.
So I would interview these clients and find that unique selling proposition, that one little thing that set them apart from everyone else. And then I would create ads that some would say could be irritating at times or bizarre or whatever. But you're listening to the radio all day and then all of a sudden somebody comes and punches you in the ear with an ad that you don't expect. That's when you listen. And that's what I got into.
People get into this business expecting, everything to get handed to them, rainbows, butterflies, a beautiful picture, but it's tough. It's not easy. You got to really have tough skin. You have to really grind. You have to work hard. You have to put in hours, right? If you see that individual selling 20 million a year, he's putting in hours. And if you expect to reach that with subpar work ethic, it's never going to happen. I had 150 inquiries about my last rental property, right?
Okay.
So I probably toured about 25 people through the rental, but each one I gave value to. I said, hey, I know you're renting right now, but have you ever considered buying a house? Well, yeah, we would love to buy a house. We just can't. Well, why not? Well, I don't know. Don't you need 20% down payment?
There you go.
No, not at all. Really? And then their eyes just light up. It's just about providing value. I think people utilize the internet to get whatever information they can, which again, I'm guilty. But there's a lot of misinformation out there. So again, providing that value to those consumers is a golden nugget. And I do that with everyone that walks through my rentals when they're looking. And again, I'm there to rent my property. I'm there telling them to buy a house. because it makes sense.
And it's also like when the neighborhood behind me, it's a lot of older generation that's lived there for 30 and 40 years. They raise their kids in those houses. You know, we're to the point where it's like, okay, can you stay in the house or do we need to get rid of the steps? But, you know, when they get on the phone, it's not me starting at my normal tempo. They're like, hello. I'm like, hey, it's Casey. Like I slow it down, talk a little lower for them, and slowly speed the conversation up. But it's a lot of mirroring. Like the minute somebody says hello, it's like, okay, however they say hello, that's how I'm talking back to them.
She's doing a great job of matching and mirroring. If it's a really, really fast talker like me or something like that, Casey's going to speed it up because there's probably a good chance we can get to a decision a heck of a lot quicker, a high D personality, right?
Correct.
And if it's like that over analyzer, we need to really slow it down because there's some processing issues at play.
Correct.
Yeah. Love that.
You know, and it's multiple, like depending on who it is. Like I talked to a salesperson that lives on that side of me the other day, and it was like, okay, look, I'm just going to get direct to the point. This is what I'm looking for. He's like, oh yeah, this is what we're thinking about. And it was just like quick bada boom conversation because he's in medical sales. I'm in real estate sales. Like there's no point in me using my sales techniques on him because he knows them all. Yeah. Like just ask him the question and he's like, oh yeah, we're thinking about it. And then I'm like, okay, I'll call you back at this time. Called him back and he's like, I talked to my wife and she said, heck no. I was like, okay, sounds great. Like I'll call you in a month.
And here's the great news, the abundance mentality. Wouldn't you rather know now? That way you can work with those that will.
Correct. And that way I can put him on hey, I'll call you in a month. Like, I know you're interested. The wife's not. Like somebody's going to give somewhere at some point. And like, I'll call you in a month and see how things are going.
Yeah. Because you're going to probably talk to your wife and plant some seeds. And then all of a sudden that, you know, your spouse is going to go, maybe.
Yeah, he wants land. He wants a smaller house. He wants all on one level. And you know, she'll eventually she'll come around to it or he'll lose. So I'll find out in the next couple months.
And the other way around, when you have a conversation with the wife, potentially, there's a heavy, my experience has been, there's definitely a little bit more of an influence because, you know, I just know how at my home, my wife always wins. It's just a matter of time sometimes.
Correct. So
Ross knows the same thing.
You know.
Yeah, I know.
We make things happen.
Yeah, we make things happen. Love it. So when you're making those phone calls, Casey, what does it look like as far as the follow-up? I know you talked about the 10 days or 10 straight calls. What are you typically doing to create engagement?
It really depends on the type of lead. So if it's an online lead that's coming in, because I've got quite a few of those sources, it's 10 days of calling them every single day until they pick up the phone. And I know, am I calling them in a week? Are we setting up an appointment? Am I calling you in a month? Like until I know where to go. Yeah. If it's circle dialing around one of my listings, it's okay. I call you when it's listed. I call you when it's closed. If you pick up the phone in one of those 2 times, then I'm going to talk to you and they're pretty much going to tell me, I'll be like, hey, can I call you in a month or 2 weeks? Like what's better? And depending on where they are, depends on, you know, where the follow-up is. If it's, I called you pre-listing and post-closing and you didn't pick up the phone and you're not my GeoFarm, I don't have time to call thousands and thousands of people. So you just sort of sit in my database. And get dripped on by an email campaign. You get dripped on by my twice weekly email newsletter. If you're in my farm, I try to touch you once a month. That's the goal. And there's always something selling, even if it's not mine. So there's always something to tell people.
I know Casey taught this within the Tom Ferry Network in the Loom platform, the CRM.
It's my life.
What's a CRM?
So CRMs where you put all of your contacts, you have all of your database in the CRM. They have all of the information there. I use Follow Up Boss. And so I have everything in there that I've talked to them about, every email I've ever sent them, every note card I've ever sent them, like everything I've done with that person is in their CRM. So I can just pull it up and I'm like, oh, you know, I scroll down a little bit and did it this morning. I was talking to a lady. I've had her in there for 3 years. It was her monthly call. And I scrolled down and was like, oh, she hurt her knee last time. We were waiting for that to heal. And so I called her and was like, hey, how's your knee doing? You know, how's your plan going? All of this. And she's like, well, I lost my job. And I'm like, lost job. She's like, and I'm looking for a new one. And so now next time I call her, I'd be like, hey, did you get a new job? Like, how are we going back on the plan? You know, so it's just to be able to not just, are you looking to sell? Are you looking to buy? Are you still looking? It's now like, where are we in the process, and getting to know them so that I can be part of their life, not just a salesperson that's just like begging.